job. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon. Happy Easter, everyone. Easter Sunday just around the corner. So I thought to myself, let me come out and talk to the people about what Easter is really all about. Right. On Easter Sunday, the whole world stops. We do our Easter, our Happy Easters. We link up with families and friends and relatives, and we just get everyone together. But you see, the reason why we're getting everyone together to celebrate Easter is because Jesus rose from the dead. And I'm so sorry to hear about your mom. I lost my dad as well.
You go through school, you go through life, you hear one story in primary school, you hear another story in high school. You hear about 3-4 stories of Jesus, how we were born, how we died, how we did this and that.
Yeah.
And that's how my age was.
Okay.
There were that fake life and stories and that.
Okay.
Life and dreams.
Okay. So, when Jesus rose from the dead, his resurrection was recorded and attested to by both sides. The people that loved Jesus and the people that hated him. Both sides testified to the resurrection of Christ. For 40 days, Jesus Christ was showing himself, was giving evidence of this resurrection. So you see, the resurrection of Christ is a historical fact. If any of you students are doing history at school or college or university, you know that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is a historical fact. Now, I'm not here to shove religion down anyone's throat. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not even here to speak about what people or opinions are. I can address that, but what I'm here to do is to speak about the resurrection of Jesus Christ and just remind each other that when we do our Happy Easters, we're doing our Happy Easters because of what Jesus did on that cross. You see, when you look around you, what we see is pain. When you look around you, what you see is sorrows and heartbreaks and heartaches. When you look around you, all you see is evil. You see people hating on each other. You see people violating each other. You see people doing horrible things to each other. Turn on the news, you know what I'm talking about. It's all there. And humanity is getting angrier by the year. People are getting angrier by the year. You know, I talk to people on the phone, and I can guarantee you that what I see is just people getting angrier and angrier. It's difficult to have a simple conversation with anybody without someone snapping. So, was humanity always like this? Were people always like this? The answer is not really. There was a time in the history of mankind in which people were perfect and happy. There was a time where everybody got along with everybody. That was in the Garden of Eden. You see, in the Garden of Eden, right, when God made man, the man was perfect. Man was perfect. There was no sin in the Garden of Eden. There was no hatred in the Garden of Eden. There was no violence when God made man and put him in the Garden of Eden. God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let us give him power and authority over creation, basically. So God makes this man, and God puts man in the Garden of Eden. Everything is fine. Can you imagine a world without hate? Can you imagine a world without violence? Can you imagine a world without hate? You see, because today people hate each other for no reason. Before you even get to know a person, you're already hurting them. And you know what? It's because of something that happened in the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, what happened is that Satan came in. And when Satan came in, he came in to deceive mankind and humanity. When Satan came in, he came in to cause man to rebel against the knowledge of God. That's what Satan came to do. When that happened, by the coming of sin into Adam's life, all of the human race was in Adam. And all of the human race was affected by this thing called sin. That's what happened. By the time we were born in sin. By the time you and I were born in iniquity. This is why you don't even need to teach a baby how to lie. A baby knows straight away how to lie. It's because of the nature of sin. So, when God made man, God took the best from himself, and God used that to make a man. When God made a human being, God took the best. So, right now, if you're listening to me, I want you to know that you're the best that God could ever make, because you were made in the image of God. So you see, it grieves God when we live our lives in sadness. It grieves God when we live our lives in sorrow. It grieves God when we live our lives in depression and anxieties. It really grieves God. Because when God made you, He made you in His image. When God made you, He made you after His likeness. You were never meant for sorrow. The human being, humanity, was never meant to live in sorrow. Humanity was never meant to live in fear. Look around you now. People are so scared. What's happening in the world today? We know that this is one of the signs of the end of the world. What's happening in the world today was spoken of 2,000 years ago and even before in great detail. So you see, even though it's fulfillment of prophecy, at the same time, the human being was never meant to live in fear. The human being was never meant to live in unhappiness and sadness and depression and anxieties and all those things. The human being was made to reflect the image of God. When God made you, God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, right? So you were made in the image of God. So what exactly is the image of God? I will have you to know that God is love. God is love. That's why you yearn for love. The reason why you yearn for love is because God is love. You were made in the image of God. The reason why you feel uncomfortable in the dark is because God is light. And you were made in the image of God. The reason why you do everything within your power to preserve your life, the reason why you love your life is because God is life. That's the reason why you love your life. The reason why you have a conscience that tells you right from wrong is because you were made in the image of God, and God is holy. So you see, you might be thinking less of yourself. You might be thinking, I'm a nobody. Let me tell you, you're somebody because you were created in the image of God. You're somebody because when God made you, He made you in His image. You're somebody because right now, as you stand there listening to me, you were made in the image of a loving God. You were never meant for low self-esteem. You were never meant for that. You were never meant for low self-esteem. You were made to reflect the light of God, the love of God, the life of God, and the holiness of God. That is the meaning of life. If you've ever wondered about the meaning of life, the meaning of life is that you were made in the image of God to reflect the love of God, the light of God, the life of God, the holiness of God. That's the reason why God put you on the earth. If you ever wondered, why are we here? What are we doing here? You were made to reflect the glory of God. You see, have you ever noticed how a selfish person only becomes more and more selfish until either they lose meaningful relationships or until they do irreparable damage to themselves? Because you were never meant for you. You were made to reflect the image of God. You're asking, okay, I hear you, I hear what you're saying. So, if you're meant to reflect the image of God, why is it that people today, why is it that the world is so messed up? Why is it that the Word of God says you're made in the image of God, but at the same time when you look around you, all you see is violence? When you look around you, all you see is hatred. I mean, gone are the days when you allow your kids to go and play outside. That generation is gone. We would go for hours and come back when we were hungry. But today, because of fear, you cannot take your eyes off your child because kids are getting abducted, because terrible things are happening in this world. So you might be asking, so what happened then? You're telling me that we're made in the image of God. You're painting this beautiful picture as it regards humanity. You're giving me a very beautiful human being, but what I see is ugliness. I'll answer that question for you. When God made man and put man in the Garden of Eden, a character called Satan, a character called the devil, turned up in the Garden of Eden to deceive man, to manipulate and confuse man, and cause man to rebel against the love of God I was talking about. To cause man to rebel against the light of God I was talking about. To cause man to rebel against the life of God. To cause man to rebel against the integrity and the holiness of God. That's what the devil came into the Garden of Eden to do. Now, what I find interesting is the fact that we're so easy to acknowledge the evil around us, but when it comes to the devil, we don't want to acknowledge his existence. Evil comes from the devil. Evil comes from Satan. When God made you, there was no ounce of evil in you. When God made man, there was no ounce of evil in that man. That evil showed up in man when Satan showed up in the Garden of Eden. Because Satan came in, he says to man, did God say you should not eat of any tree? They're having a conversation with Eve, right? Before you know it, Eve has eaten of the fruit. Before you know it, Adam as well is taken of that fruit. That's when sin affected man. That's when sin came into the world. Now here's a kicker. And I pray earnestly that you hear me as I'm saying this. When Adam rebelled against the love of God, all of humanity was in Adam. When Adam decided to to rebel against the light of God, all of humanity was in Adam. All of it. All of us were in Adam when Adam decided to go against the word of God. You see how you take your surname from your dad? I don't know what your last name is, but I know that you get your surname from your dad, right? Well, just to let you know, you might have an English surname, but I put it to you that your surname is Adam because you're a son of Adam. You came from Adam. You might have an African surname, like myself, but I guarantee you, your surname is Adam because you came from Adam. You might have an Asian surname. I guarantee you, your surname is Adam because you came from Adam. So, God had said to man, you can eat everything in the garden, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil, don't eat. The day you go there, you shall surely die. That's what God said to Adam. Now, when God said it to Adam, He also said it to you because you were in Adam. The whole entire human race was in Adam when God was having that conversation with Adam in the Garden of Eden. You might be asking me, well, why would God put it there? You know, why would God put a tree in the Garden of Eden, knowing that if man would eat of it, then men would surely die? The answer is this. When God made you, He made you in His image. He made you to reflect Him. And God is a God of choice. God has given all of us choice, the power of choice. You just have to make the right choice. I've made some choices. I regret those choices today. You've made some choices. You regret those choices today. God gave you the power of choice because God Himself is a God of choice.